up with it? Do it cause I love it and I stuck with it. We ain't with the subbing in the cut with it. Please none of the talks, I heard enough of it. Like, what you gonna do? Where you at? Who you with? You ain't really about this, don't talk about it. Really on the move, on the map, never slip. Keep your hands to your lips, don't talk about it. Real eyes, real lies all the time. Stand on it, if we said it, we don't walk around it. Loose lips, ain't ships, red cup, blue strips, new phone, who this? No, we don't allow it. Really on go, I don't know what's an off day. Now we on road, came from smoking in the hallway. Now we got shows, boys feeling like Broadway. Always look both ways, even on a crossway. Driving down Cross Bay, out town Barclays. Really on big things, came up a small way. Championship rings, baby, that's a ball game. Oh, she want a little bag, baby, that's small change. Yeah, that money talk. If we ain't cool, then cut me off. No breaking news, don't run your mouth. Thought it was the plug, now he running off. Thought it was a plug, now he running off. What you gonna do? Where you at? Who you with? You ain't really about this, don't talk about it. Really on the move, on the map, never slip. Keep your hands to your lips, don't talk about it. Real eyes, real lies all the time. Stand on it if we...
Hey guys, welcome. Tonight I'm really excited. We have part 2 of Black Manhood. This is a very serious conversation for me on Real Talk with the Men, not because I'm a mom who raised a boy, but because I think it's important that we show young men that there are opportunities for change and that it's never too late to make choices to change your life. So tonight on part 2, we have Gaylon, we have Dr. Campbell, and we have Ish. Guys, this is going to be an exciting conversation tonight. I'm looking forward to it.
All right.
That's good.
All right, so I'm just going to say, all of you look like you've been hard at work today.
Working smart.
I've been juggling many hats today. Cooking.
You have many hats today, Ish?
I was making dinner prior to coming on board here. I'm making smothered turkey wings.
Really? It's too bad I'm not close to you right now. I'll take one of those turkey wings. All right, guys, so let's get started in this great conversation. First, I just want to commend all of you for being husbands and being fathers. Before we even get started, you guys are an excellent example of what Black men should be to a lot of children. And so I just want to thank you in advance because a lot of children don't have that. And every day I see a bunch of children who don't have that, and it just bothers me. So of course I wanted to do this show to show them that even if you don't have that person present in your life, you can always look to other people as an example of how you can make that shift. Okay, so when I say to you the definition of manhood in 1 minute, what would you say manhood is? The definition of manhood. And Ish, do not be throwing out your little encyclopedia words on us because you always trying to bring it. See, that's that college education. So I just want to say, really, Ish, because you always throwing us a new word of the day. I'm going to start saying, Ish, what's our word of the day?
Use your college education, brother. Don't let her suppress you.
You know, the whole manhood thing, I never really thought about it up until recently. I just, you're a male, so you just operate as a male. But as I'm getting older, I'm realizing there's certain things that males are supposed to do, like, the whole provision, providing, protecting, my dad was a good example. I mean, he didn't talk to me about specifics about how to be a dad or a husband, but I watched his example. My father's from the Caribbean, so that the culture's a little different. People aren't as explicit in terms of giving detail. My dad didn't say I love you. You just watch his example, and I mirrored his example in terms of manhood. But as I get older, I notice there are more things about manhood that I didn't realize that I'm learning now.
Right.
About, that I'm trying to implement. So it's an ongoing process to me.
So do you think there's a difference in the definition for manhood when you're a Black man versus another culture, or the definition or meaning to you is different or the same?
Well, for me, it's different because I'm really big on, bringing my people up, so to speak. So in other words, in other communities, they may be concerned about their own families, whereas I'm concerned about my family and the extended family. If I see a young man in the street using the N-word or doing certain things, I'll approach him and talk to him, and explain to him how that's not acceptable and why it's not acceptable. So I take, I'm really big on community activism, so to speak. So to answer your question succinctly, I think as a Black man, it's more than your own immediate family.
Okay, it's more than your immediate family. Okay, so what about you, Gaylon?
I'm more simple. I define manhood or being a man. I'm assuming that's what the question is, as an adult male. Then I define, am I a responsible man? Am I a loving man? Am I a caring man? Am I a providing man? I, I do think, and this is just my opinion, that men have to be careful about the moving goalpost. It's very rare that you hear someone refer to an adult woman as anything other than a woman.
Okay.
Adult female as anything other than a woman. But you hear people saying all the time that an adult male is not a man. Now, he could be an irresponsible man, a criminal man,
right,
any other type of man, but he's still an adult male. Now, in the context of what I think you're asking, because I just want to get that out of the way first, because I think that's responsible as a man. I think it's responsible I need to be responsible enough so nobody's walking up to some 50-year-old man talking about you're not a man. I think what you mean is, what does a responsible man look like? I think that's the walk of integrity. Are you your word? Do you handle your responsibilities? Are you a productive member of society? You know, those are things that, I would define, in my context of being a man. Are you, your spiritual walk, your providing walk. If you don't have any family, no wife, no children, but are you still showing and presenting yourself as a person of integrity in the world? I think that matters. So I'm going over my minute.
No, you're fine. Okay, so Dr. Campbell.
So there is a difference, at least in my opinion, between male gender, and manhood, right? Male gender and, playing a prominent or occupying your role as a man. I think, you can be a male person with, male features, male genitalia, etc., but not taking up your role as a man in society. There's a difference between the two. I think what you're hinting at is, a man in his role in society, the provider, the protector, the one that, the group, the community looks to for leadership and for guidance. I think there is where we're seeing, a deficit, a lacking, men not occupying that role. If you take it back to, and Rev, you can probably help me better than I can even myself with this, biblical days, and the role of a man in the family, the role of man, of how God created them. The men that we see today, a lot of us have deviated from that. And because we've deviated from that, and God is no longer providing the guidance in most of the males' lives, we don't have men playing that role that they should be playing, or that they were called to play. And so we have confusion. We have, men not, providing leadership. Now we have, women taking, a different role too, because men are not taking up the role that God has really called us to take up. I think that's, if I'm understanding you correctly, that's the role that I think, we men, or our boys need to learn to occupy, or to learn to strive for, so to speak.
Thank you for that. And I want to say, Reggie Dillard, this is one of my really, really good friends. And I think people probably think we're siblings, but this is college. And he actually used to fly in town when I first started this podcast. Reggie helped me start this podcast live. We were live in our studio, and he knows how much I love him. Like his words cannot even tell you. When you got homeschool college to fly in to help you live out a dream or an idea, right? And so, Reggie, thank you. I can't even say thank you enough. And thank you for coming on tonight, because I admire him. He's a good dad, and truly stands up the word manhood. in so many different ways. He supports so many of his friends and so many other people. So I wanted to make sure he came on tonight. So Reggie, what's up? What you got to say? In 1 minute, Reggie.
I know. First of all, thank you for having me on, and you're welcome for me being here. Because you said thank you. I don't want to dismiss that. But in Manhood, I think it was Reverend Gaylon McDowell said that it's a man does responsibility, handles his responsibility. I think, in my opinion, when you say manhood, the word responsibility is already understood. For me, it's more than, when you are a man, it's more than just being a man to your wife, to your child. You're a man of your family, you're a man of your community, and you're a man of the world. And you have a responsibility in all those aspects. It's your citizenship and how you can handle the responsibility that is given before you in the world. It starts in the home first, as husbands, as fathers, as sons and brothers and uncles and cousins. Then it goes outside in your fellowship with your church members, your neighbors, your mentors, your mentees, and your colleagues. I don't believe that if you are the man that we are speaking of, that you cannot be that guy of integrity in those different aspects and walks of life. And when I know what Dr. Campbell said, we provide, that's a very general thing, because most people feel like men are supposed to provide finances. Finances is an aspect of our provision. We provide finances, we provide protection, we provide leadership, we provide knowledge, we provide stability, we provide emotional support, we provide identity to our families. And manhood is not something that you can just graduate into at a certain age. You graduate into it by the assumption of responsibilities as you take on more for your for yourself first, for your family, your community.
Wow, Reggie, as always, I don't even know what to say between you and Ish and Galen and Dr. Campbell. Ish, he didn't give us the word of the day yet, but I know it's coming. That's all I got to say. I know it's coming. All of these big words with all these college-educated Black men, I don't even know what to say. Folks, we're going to be right back after this commercial break. And gentlemen, thank you very much. All of those were great examples, I think, that any young man could align himself with, to help him understand that there is a path and there is an opportunity. So thank you so much. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
I don't know about you, but you make me crazy. Never got your name, but you got me begging. I don't know about you, you're like a pick and choose. Make it all about you. Go take it all if you want. Taking the chance, stuck in my head, not gonna leave it at that. Taking the lead, feeling your heat. Just wanna give you my best. I don't even know your name, but you got me. 'Cause you're old to die. We don't know what happens next, but you got me. 'Cause I'm next in line. You make it look so easy, making me feel so dreamy. Not the one to pay for drinks, but you got me. 'Cause you're old to die. Got me locked in now. Go ahead and take a shot. Do you really want me? Maybe you're just...
Hey guys, welcome back to Real Talk with the Men. And tonight's conversation is about Black manhood. You know, with everything that's going on in social media, I felt compelled, to have this conversation, because a lot of times I'm talking to people and I'm not sure if they understand, and I'm not going to say roles, but I'm going to say opportunities to change your role in life. People just think, if this is who I am, this is just who I am. And I hear that a lot. So my next question for you guys is, if you had to divide manhood into 5 sections, what would they be? An example would be provider, father, etc., but they could be your own. But if you had to divide manhood into 5 sections, what would it be? And so, Reggie, I'm going to start with you. They are hard questions tonight.
Come up with this formula for manhood.
All right, so Reggie, what would be your 5?
It would probably lean a lot towards the identities in ministry. You would have to be a leader, like a pastor. You would have to be a counselor to provide stability, emotional and mental in your household. You would have to be prophetic and to have vision and to set your family on course. Of course, you'd have to be a teacher. You would have to be an apostle in the sense of drawing people who are lost, because there are a lot of lost young people into what manhood looks like. I'm sure all of us has put our arms around a young adolescent to bring them into understanding what men do with family and what we do with young people, and I'm talking being responsible, not anything perverted. Reverend, what was that, 4 or 5?
That was 5.
That was 5.
Yep.
Did I miss one, Reverend?
Yeah,
well, that's your 5.
If you're gonna be the minister thing, no,
that's your 5. Right, I'm messing with you, brother. 5. All right, so Ish, what's your 5, Ish? Oh, Ish, you've muted yourself.
I'm sorry. 5 is a little tough. I'm gonna do my best to try to come up with 5 or 2 in addition to the 3 that you mentioned. Obviously provider, protector, but I like to extend the protection, as Mr. Dillard said, in terms of the community at large. I think it's important for men to also be a provider, a mentor, a protector, a mentor. What else? A counselor, an advisor. I think it has to be, it needs to be viewed as the extended family or the community at large, where men need to be more present. Like for example, I like to go into neighborhoods and talk to kids and protect the women, protect the children. Actively do things like that. That's what I'm really passionate about. Actually going there and making a change in regards to some of the pathologies we all talk about. Being active in making those changes.
Okay. Dr. Campbell?
This is a tough one. So these questions are coming hard tonight. I see you. Okay. All right. So, I think, a father is important for, being a, man or a manhood. And when I say father, I don't mean like biological father. Right. I mean, a father is occupying that role, of father whoever needs the role, right? I've been, a father to people who I didn't father, right? But that's you recognizing that this person needs a father figure, a leader in their space. And so I believe that that's an important role. Another important role, I believe, is spiritual leadership. When I say spiritual leadership, I have friends who believe in a higher power. Some believe in, I believe in God. I'm a Christian. Others believe in, other, higher power beings. But, having a respect for some sort of higher power deity that there is, and guiding those people who may be looking for, something else that is not earthly, right? Showing them that there possibly is something else out there that they can look to for guidance, for help, for spiritual healing. I believe that that's a part of manhood as well. I can't say healer. In my case, I work in the healing arts, but as a man, I think when it comes to men back in the day or men in the wild, you play a role in, if someone gets injured, you're there to either reassure, to guide, to help, to band-aid, whatever it is. So they can look to you knowing that, you have more than the average to offer, right? Whether it's in the family or in the community or whatever it is. So I think those are some of the ones that I can just pull up top of my head. But of course, I would need more time to delve a little deeper.
Oh no,
But,
I think, Dr. Campbell, I think those are great. I really do. Okay, so Gaylon.
Okay, I just jotted down a couple of things while the guys were talking. So some of this will be repeats. The first thing I wrote down was model excellence. I believe that one of the things a man has to do is model excellence. Why? Because more is caught than taught. Therefore, when people are watching you, you know, we grew up in the era in our age range where people used to say, do as I say, not as I do. And we now know that doesn't work. So it's important to model excellence. What do you want to see, not only in your own family and your own community? People know a man by his influence on those around him and what he's connected to. The second thing obviously was provider, but provider, as many of the gentlemen have already stated, provision is not just money. Provision is looking at what is necessary in this moment that I need to provide. All right. And because when you understand provider, the first thing you have to look at is the evaluation of your space, which requires wisdom. So provision is based upon wisdom. Right. And wisdom is, and I don't believe the wisdom is just intellectual knowledge or data. Wisdom is discernment. It's spiritual discernment that shows up in the ability to make decisions, and sometimes hard decisions. Right. The next one was integrity. You know, Christine, I use integrity almost all the time because I often say, if you didn't believe in the integrity of that chair you're sitting in, you wouldn't sit in it. So and part of that integrity is the honesty, is being your word, is showing up consistently the same way. When you have situations and circumstances, and I saw some of this stuff growing up, where I didn't believe in the stability of some of the people that were around me, that created its own problem. So in that integrity, I would do a slash stability, because I think one of the things that men bring to the table is a calmness and a balance to those that are around them. Like, okay, if you're a man where your woman or your children or your family or community can't exhale around, you're not stable. Okay. So it's an emotional balance. There's a lifestyle balance that goes along with that integrity / stability that all men, in my opinion, should provide for those that are around them. Like, okay, if everything else is changing around here, I know that he is going to be solid. He's not going anywhere. He's going to stand on his principles. He's going to stand for his truth. He's not going to be moved. That's important. Protector, which was already stated. And protector, again, most of the time is presence. Very few of us are going to be John Wick out there fighting folks in the street and all of that other stuff. You know, that's right. That's very rare. Okay. Right. So, you know, but we have to be mindful that, again, a protecting presence understands that which I am responsible for is under my wings. And if somebody's going to take the hit, I take the hit first. Right. All right. So, you know, and I think this is especially important when a man is dealing with his woman and his children, you know, because, you know, many times people jump out, and when you have irresponsible men, non-providing men, their ladies and their children are taking hits they're not supposed to take. Right. They're making decisions that they shouldn't have to make, especially children, because there's no man in the space that gives them the cushion, that's taking the hits, that's providing for them, and makes them not have to think about those things. Next thing for me, and the last thing was I wrote servant leader, not just leader. The reason why I wrote servant leader is it's nothing like a dude with a big ego that you can't tell anything to. So part of being a servant leader just means that you recognize, as that old gospel song used to say, that there's somebody bigger than you and I. Now, different people have different religious faiths, and I'm not here to get into in a multicultural society get into a religious debate. But are you willing to be open and receptive to a divine guidance that's beyond your own ego, your own intellectual thinking, your own cultural conditioning, beyond what you think is right or wrong? Versus, okay, am I willing to stop and do my inner work and pay attention to that spiritual intuition that God gave us to be able to help and make a decision that's not always necessarily going to benefit me? I'm not trying to manipulate the situation for my own ego purposes, but I'm being the divine instrument through which God's love and grace can show up. So that's a long answer.
No, I think the definitions, I don't know about you guys, was it helpful for you when because Gaylon is so clear, which I love about him. He's a teacher, and that's one of the things I love about him. But before we go to commercial break, I do want to say it is so important to have good fathers in your life. And I'm very appreciative. My parents are back there. I'm really love and appreciate them because it was my dad. He never said a lot, but it was when he came to me in one moment and he said, "You're not an ugly duckling, you're a beautiful swan." My father could see my pain because people were teasing me and calling me an ugly duckling. He never said anything, but he came to me and let me know it's not about what they think or feel. It's about what you think or feel. And I'm telling you, you're a beautiful swan. See, that made all the world of difference to me. And after that, honey, I started walking with a theme song. I didn't care what nobody said because my daddy said that I was a swan. So I'm going to talk to you guys when we get back. I know we have this catchphrase that we say only a man can raise a man. But when we get back, we're going to talk about what role does a woman play in the scenario of manhood. When we get back from this quick commercial break. See, I gave y'all time to think about that question because Dr. Campbell was like, she came with another one. Yes, I did. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
This is ticket talking mother for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma.
I'm going out my mind. Give me some directions to get to you. To get to you, ain't gonna waste my time. I know that we got connection. I think about you. You're on my mind, on my mind, on my mind. Yeah, I'm going out of my mind, out of my mind, out of my mind. Yeah, for you, my love.
Hey guys, welcome back to Real Talk with the Men. Tonight we're talking about Black manhood. To me, there is a difference, maybe because I'm a Black woman, but I don't know. I think it's a difference to me than just being a man and being a Black man. So before we even continue this conversation, I just want to say that Ish, you got a shout out from your boy Harold. And he also said that we must be an example of 3 core values: integrity, respect, and excellence. I like that. That's great feedback. And I do think that's important And before we move forward, Dr. Campbell, I want to kind of go back to something you said, that when a man does not fill those shoes, then it does require a woman to step up, right? And a lot of times that's not what a woman wants to do. We really don't. But when we feel that there's a need to do it, we know that there's a gap. We have to stand in that gap and hoping that maybe our partner will step in that gap and see that I'm standing there for him, holding it. Or we feel like if you're not going to step in the gap, then we just got to keep moving forward, right? So I just want to say for all those single moms out there, I don't want you guys to think or misunderstand what I'm saying, because I was a single mom by choice. I want to be clear, by choice. But still, I surrounded my son by really good men like you guys to make sure he had that male influence. And also he had a dad. But seeing somebody during the summer is not seeing somebody every day. There's a big difference. So I want to be clear. So did I give y'all time to think about this question? Because y'all like, Christine, you bringing it tonight. I am bringing it. But there's a reason for it. So the question I have for you guys is, what role does a woman play in the scenario of manhood? And so I'm going to start with, go ahead, Gaylon.
I was going to ask, could I jump on this one first?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
And hopefully, because I think this is a very loaded question, and I'm used to dealing with folks asking me loaded questions.
Why do you think it's loaded? You think it's loaded?
Yeah, it's very loaded. It's very loaded. I think you slick. But anyway, I think there's a couple of things. One, when a boy growing into manhood is mainly surrounded by women, one of the first things that boy coming into manhood needs to understand is that they shouldn't be leaning and living off of women. I think that's the first thing. And what I mean by that is not if you're married and you have an agreement and all this type of things and you whatever, but you know what I'm talking about. The slick brother.
Slick brother.
That kind of go from house to house to house to house, never has his own, because mom, aunties, grandmamas, big sisters never held them to any level of accountability. They always stepped in and never let the boy grow into and develop his manhood traits. And I think it's very important, and when I see this, I try to address it as calmly and as nicely and respectfully as I can. When I see what I believe that a woman by necessity raising many times boys, and then not necessarily having any accountability, doing everything for them, not you got 3 boys in the house and you out there shoveling snow as a female, something is wrong. You're taking the garbage out, something is wrong. Things, I'm just using those as simple examples.
Oh, no, those are great examples.
Because what it's saying is, it's okay to live off of mama. It's okay to live off of auntie. It's okay to live off of grandmama. So it's obviously okay for me to be in a space to where I work on these female. And I'm saying this from a standpoint because that can easily be viewed as a hustler mentality.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But some of it is just these guys just not used to just creating a plan. And that plan becomes their curriculum for living. Like, this is what I'm going to live into. Next thing, really quickly, boys that don't always know how to interact with other men, which I think is really, really clear. Any man knows that anytime 2 men have the potential for conflict, it can go really somewhere else.
It can escalate.
The ability to be reserved and understand the stakes, and I'm not saying this is in a disrespectful way, but sometimes some boys and some young men are way too emotional without understanding that those emotions can erupt into something beyond what they're willing to deal with. I think the responsibility for a woman is, in the scenario of manhood, is how can you get them, like you did with your son, how can you get them around responsible men so they can learn what manhood looks like, so they can see it first of all, and then learn from other men. Is that sports? Is that other community events, community programs that are your own family members, brothers, uncles, grandfather, whatever, to be able to show them this is what you need to do? Because it's things that I understand from my grandparents, for example, my grandfathers, that I didn't understand when I was a boy, and I clearly get now.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is going to be the controversial answer, fellas. So y'all don't have to jump on this one because I just have to say it. One of the things that women have to be responsible for, in my opinion, when it comes to dealing with the scenario of manhood, is being responsible about who they choose to have children with.
Boom. But it goes bigger than that too. But go ahead.
I understand that, but let's start there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start there, because what ends up happening is you're expecting Pookie to be somebody else other than Pookie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're meeting someone who already has an NBA team, and he's not taking care of those children, and you think you're going to be different. And sometimes there's situations and circumstances. Not only are these ladies having responsible babies by irresponsible men, but they're also in a situation where the men or their children are already here, and they're bringing more irresponsible men into their space. So you have to be very careful about who you expose your children to from a standpoint of manhood. And because I'm a girl dad, I'm really mindful of, like, okay, who, if I know people who have girls and they're so quick to want to be with a man, that you have to be careful who you bring into the space. That could create other situations and circumstances. I've also seen situations and circumstances where somebody got married, or they would live in, cohabitate, and they were a man's man, and they got with a woman who wanted to baby their son. That created massive conflict. It's a lot of situations and circumstances that go along with the role of a woman, but I'm talking a lot, and I don't want to take away any more time from the other guys.
So let me ask you guys a question. Going with the assumption or concept or idea, do you think a woman's role is to mimic what a woman should be in a young man's life at any point? Because what I'm hearing is not, how can I say this? I don't personally know any Pookies, because I'm just that kind of chick. I don't know Pookies. I've never known Pookies. But it doesn't mean I haven't run across some educated Pookies. That's what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is, at some point, do you think a woman's role is to mimic what a woman should be? Because a lot of times young men don't see that. So here's the example.
Okay, I would say, give an example what you mean by that.
Yes. So the thing is, I cooked, even though I worked every day. And when my son was just, knee high, I was working on my first master's. He went to school with me every day with his little backpack. He went to class with me. So I worked during the day. I went to get my first master's at night. I cooked, I cleaned, I took care of him. But the thing is, I was showing him, this is what mommies do outside of work. My job is to take care of you, is to love you, is to be there for you, and to provide for you in the capacity that a mom does, right? But I think a lot of times when I say about what role or scenario does a woman play, it is that also what you said, Gaylon. I didn't bring people around my son. There were certain people that I thought, because of who I was and what I was doing, I didn't want my son to think that I was a loose booty on the street. So I just didn't date. I focused on him until there was a point where he was in high school. And I think then I started going out, but even he wasn't around at that time when I was doing that. So my thing is, what role do you think a woman does play in ensuring that a man does become a man? Because there is a vital role other than us carrying children and wiping their snotty noses. I'm hoping there's a different role.
What I would say, my mother played a very big role in terms, more so than my father, actually explicit, giving me direct information on how to be a man, So I would say a woman, even though I came from a two-parent family, my mother was very instrumental. For example, my mother made it a point to make us very domesticated, taught us how to cook and clean. And she came from a very, gender-specific, culture where men didn't do that. So I didn't really understand it at the time, but she made it a point for us to be able to take care of ourselves, whereas my father didn't do those. My father never cooked, but my mother did everything for him, and she worked a full-time job. But she made it a point for us to learn how to do a lot of domesticated things. So I guess maybe it's what she wanted my father to do, and she didn't want us to be like my dad. I'm not sure, but so I think like Tupac said, we do get our initial gain from a woman.
I'm only laughing because my mom was the same kind of mom. My dad didn't, she picked out his clothes. Literally. She did everything for him, which honestly, when I'm in a relationship, I'm the same way. Like I do everything. Because I'm mimicking her. So what about you for Dr. Campbell, your mom, I know for sure, honey, those Jamaican women, they are no joke. They are like all 360 moms.
So I'll tell you what, and Ish, I think you were right on when. So I grew up in a two-parent family. My mom was there, my dad was there, but not because my dad was there means that he was there. There's a difference, right? And that's what I kind of want us to think about for a second here. Two people living in a house raising a child doesn't necessarily mean that their presence is impacting how that child is being raised. My dad, I love him. In my book that I wrote, I talked about our relationship. And even to this day, our relationship is not like my mom's relationship. And we talk about it. Not that it's a bad thing. It's a different relationship, but it's not as close as my mom. And we've talked about this several times. It's just different. Why? Because, yes, he was, the provider. He was always going out to provide for the family, but he was never around. At least that's what I can remember. And the times when he came around, he came to exact punishment. He came to, exact punishment. That's how I remember my dad showing up when it's time to provide heavy duty discipline with the whips and the wires and the sticks, right? But in terms of teaching me integrity and honesty and sacrifice, that's my mom. Managing money on a budget. That's because I watched her do it. I don't think she was trying to teach me how to be a man. I think she was doing her very best to keep the family together, to keep us together, to provide for us. And by doing her very best, I learned from that. I think a lot of the families that we see, women, they're doing their best with what they have. There's some women I know who are working 3 jobs just to provide. And so when Tyrone doesn't turn out to be the best, can I blame her when she did all that she could to keep him out of social services or to keep him off the street by working just to get things together for them, right? I can't necessarily blame her because she didn't have the resources. We already, the Black family is already at a disadvantage. Inner cities, the communities, the lack of resources. And so the television becomes the teacher. The video games become the teacher. And so the people who should be there to teach them, to instruct them, to guide them, oftentimes they're forced to go out and to provide or to try to make ends meet. Not even provide, but to just make ends meet. Food on the table, right? To provide monies to go to the doctor, do all these things, the necessities, they're barely trying to get those together. And so when it comes to raising a child, it's more than just say, hey, watch this cartoon, I'll be back. Or, hey, you know what? Go to school from 9 to 3, and that's it. It's more than that. What happens in school is just a fraction of their learning. The majority of it comes with the parents, comes with you spending time with that child. And unfortunately, in the Black home, we're at a disadvantage sometimes, to be honest. We truly are.
Oh, we're constantly at a disadvantage. I can tell you one person on this show who has so much love for some ladies. They made him king of the hill. We won't throw his name out, Gaylon, but Gaylon was loved so much that I'm telling you, he used to walk on clouds over there. But the thing is,
when she say ladies, she means people in my family.
I
want my wife watching this and thinking
full disclosure,
very clear. She's talking about I was the apple of several ladies in my family.
I'm just saying, come on now, Rev, come on.
And I'm going to tell you that I think that plays a major role because I know Reggie And it was hard for me to have Reggie on the show because his mother is no longer here. And when I tell you, his mom, just a beautiful woman. And Reggie, that's Reggie. I can only tell you, he is the person he is today because he has such good parents, but more importantly, because of his mom. 100% his mom. And although he's a giant, he is a jolly, loving giant. And let me tell you, a lot of people don't even understand. He still takes good care of his daughter. Like, he is the home parent. Do you understand? And my thing is, I don't think a lot of men understand why he thought that was so important. He works, but his priority is his daughter. That's like, to me, that's like the awesome fatherness. So Reggie, I'm going to give you some time to talk about that, because it was because of the role your mom played in your life that you decided that parenting was a priority and not just you being a person who brought home the bacons.
Well, first of all, thank you. And my mom passed away a couple of years ago. And I love my mom, and her and I had a very unique and special relationship. And my mom had a unique and special relationship with all of her children. And it was 4 of us. My parents were married 62 years before my mom died. And family was probably close as the Cosby Show as you can get without dad being a doctor and mom being a lawyer. But the dynamics were very similar. However, saying all that, I'm very much a daddy's boy. My dad and I are very much alike, and
They're like brothers.
we have a lot of conflict. We butt heads a lot, but it's all love and respect. But going to the role that women can play in manhood is, I hear a lot in my personal circles and from women, and even on Facebook I hear, be a man, be a man, be a man, from women. And I'm like, first know your role before you can tell somebody else how to play theirs. The last thing that Kobe wanted to do was tell Shaq how to be a center until he became a good 2-guard. You cannot tell a man how to be a man if you don't fully know how to be a woman first, and then a woman to that man. And, I was in the conversation not long ago, and a woman was talking about how men this, how men that, how men this. And I said, well, the men you're talking about, outside of your dad, you selected all of those men. What you don't have a problem with men, you have a problem with your selection. And if you were a better, if you had better character, and if you had stepped up your game, those men that came into your life that weren't worthy of being in your life, you would have known better. But game recognized game. How you recognize his not meeting the mark is only because you didn't meet your mark. And I don't say that to dog women, because there's enough blame and accusations going around for everybody. But I do feel like there's a difference between out at work and at home. At work, you have status, you have job title. When you come home, you don't necessarily wear your job title when you come through the front door. And that's not just for women, that's for men too. You can be the CEO of whatever the case may be, mom or dad. When you come home, you're just mom or dad. You know what I mean? You got to throw the ball. You got to, stay up late at night when they're sick. You got to do, clean up the vomit, change the diapers, all this stuff.
All that stuff, Reggie.
Your job title doesn't exclude you from that. And we get gassed up at our job titles that we come home thinking that we had the same level of status that we had at work. And you do have a remarkable level of status at home. It just doesn't operate the same way it does at work. And for women's role is to, first of all, hold themselves accountable for who they are and who they aren't, and then support the man in doing that job and handling that responsibility, and not trying to do so in a condescending manner. his partner in it, be his backbone. And I'm not saying that he has a backbone. I mean, to take his back, you know, to support him in that role. God did not call man the helpmate. He called woman the helpmate. And you know, I was thinking. I think Brother McDowell said earlier, as a protector, and I know a lot of times, a man as a protector, best protection we can give you is prevention. When I got to come and get in the middle of something, I'm not protecting you. I'm taking up for you. I'm defending. Because a good protection, we see down the road, hey, listen, we need to cross the street here. Hey, we need to do this. We need to act this way, because this type of behaviors are going to bring unnecessary attention and focus to us. That's protection. And when a woman helps that support, is she listens. She understands the submissive role and his authority. And submission doesn't mean subservitude. It just means
you're over your time limit.
No.
How
Reggie,
convenient.
the show ends in like literally 8 minutes, and we have like 4 more questions. Wrap it up, Reggie.
No, all submission is understanding whose authority. That's it. Everybody submits to something.
Amen.
You know what? I'm going to say I agree with everything everybody said, and I'm going to put timers on the show from now on when people come. I'm giving you all timers because all of you guys have great examples. And I just want to say, you know, starting out with what Gaylon said was very important, that if you do deal with a Pookie, you can't expect Pookie, who already got a whole he got a whole team ready to play basketball, but he not taking care of them, but you think you're going to be the one. And you can't. So women, you got to understand, you have to be, I always say, you know, men create the opportunity for you to be the woman you need to be. But if you're not already in the mindset of what that role is, you're always going to make, like Reggie said, those choices. And you're looking at other people. So women, the only thing I can say to you is, and again, I'm not expecting everybody to be a Christine. That's not what I'm expecting. What I'm saying is, I chose a very non-traditional way to be a mom. It was by choice because of a circumstance, but I also was determined because I wanted to be successful in life. So honestly, if I was a man, I would have established my career until I was 40, and then I would have got married and had children. But because I'm a woman, you don't have that timeline. So I had to get it while it was hot. And I had to hurry up in my 40s, had this kid, because my window for pregnancy, and I'm the one that's carrying the kid, was closing. So I want women to understand, I know every woman doesn't want to be a parent, but when you decide at that point you're going through with a pregnancy and this kid is coming, you got to flip a switch at some point, honey. It can't always be about you. You got to make those sacrifices. And that's what these men are saying. The other thing the men are saying is that you got to make better choices about the men that you have in your life and the men that you have around your kids' life. Yeah. So go ahead, Gaylon.
Interject. I think it's really, really necessary because all of 3 of us have said it. 4 of us have said it, but I think it needs to stand out. Responsibility and blame are 2 totally different things. I think it's really necessary to be able to have responsible conversation without making somebody who's already going through a difficult situation wrong. We have to be, you know, like, okay, part of leadership is helping people understand that, okay, we can be responsible for our choices, and we can be the grace and support that you need to help you get through those choices. It's, you know, because if I feel as though the help that's coming to me, if this lady feels as though these men are going to support and help me, but they have to put their foot on my neck first, then it might not come across the same way. Right. But part of being a father figure, I'm going to use that term because not everybody is a biological father, is sometimes being that space that says, okay, there are consequences to choice, and I'm still going to love you. And sometimes people feel as though, so sometimes people sway away from sometimes saying the tough thing because they don't want to be viewed as shaming or blaming.
Don't.
So it's finding that balance. And life is like a tightrope. You've heard me say this many times. Every time a person's on a tightrope, every step is a new level of balance.
Yes.
People just think that life, you make a decision and life just works. You just walk across from one building to another on a rope. No, every step requires new balance. And if people understood that, then they would understand that life is always dynamic. It's not static. It's always going to require a lot of different type of choices to make it work. And that's why in my opinion, part of a man's responsibility is his own growth, his own soul growth.
Yes.
Because many times, and I dealt with this situation and circumstances as well with my dad at times. My parents divorced when I was 1, and he's had his own challenges through the life, and I love him. But you can't give what you don't have. You just can't give it, whether you live in the house or you live outside the house. You cannot give what you don't have. So sometimes we're thinking that our brothers should be giving something that they never got. My maternal grandfather was hard as a rock, but his mother passed away when he was 9. He had to take care of 5 other siblings and drop out of school in elementary school to help raise his own siblings while his father worked. He had no wiggle room.
Right.
He wasn't going to be outside throwing the ball with me. That was outside the paradigm.
Right.
So you can't give what you don't have. So brothers that are out there watching this today, emphasize your soul growth and your soul development and your own self-care. Go see Dr. Campbell and the equivalent. Take care of your health physically. Take care of your mental health. Take care of your spiritual health. Take care of your emotional health. Go get therapy if you need to go get it. Do what you need to do so you are equipped to be able to be the responsible man you want to be to your family and community.
Gaylon, I could just end the show right now. I don't even know what. I don't have nothing else to say. Well, Gaylon, I'm going to say as always, you hit the nail on the head. But I do want to make sure I include this. Harold, thank you so much for watching tonight. And thank you for supporting Ish. He said, no matter which parent or parents are present, it is important to teach children to earn their way through life. To lead, one must learn to serve others first. Amen. One of the common things that all of you guys have said is that you all are embedded in your faith. And I think that's so important, and people don't get that. It is so important, and I think it's like a grounder, which I 100% love and respect. And that's one of the things my dad used to say to me all the time, because I grew up as a Unitarian in the Unity Church. And my dad used to look at me. He says, Christine, I want you to remember one thing. And I said, what? He said, humble. And when he said humble, I didn't understand, at 10 or 11, what is humble? It was like one of Ish's words of the day. I didn't know what that was, but it wasn't until my dad broke it down in very simple terms. You see that woman cleaning these floors? And I said, yes, sir. He said, I don't care how many degrees you get. You're no better than that woman. You speak to that woman like you speak to everybody else. And still to this day, every time I walk into a new building, wherever I go, I get to know all the folks that clean the building. I get to know all the security, and I speak to them every single day with respect. I always say, hello, sir. Hello, ma'am. How are you doing? How's your day going? I'm very respectful. But one very important thing, people never even know what I do at all. They just think I'm an IT lady, which I like. Because to me, I'm just Julian's mom. That's it. My greatest accomplishment is my kid, is not all of these degrees on the wall, because my legacy will be proof with what he turns out to be. Not my proof. My parents was my proof. You get what I'm saying? I'm their proof. My son is my proof, my legacy and the things I leave behind. So folks, I want you to rewatch this podcast, but I also want you to watch the one on self-care. The men talked about self-care, specifically self-care for men, and what that entails and what that looks like. So please go through our YouTube channel. Be sure to like this YouTube conversation. If you're watching us on whatever social media site, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, just click like. But not only that, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out every single Thursday, because these guys are giving you what it is. And as you see, Dr. Campbell said I was giving him some tough questions today. Today was a tough question day. You know why? Because I have he's the number one guru in metaphysics in the world. You guys got one of the top doctors in Vegas. He was voted Mr. Las Vegas, okay, on this call. You got Ish, and I'm going to tell you right now, Ish is that dude to be like undercover, like it ain't even, it's cool, he all laid back. Let me tell you something. Ish, you are the most intelligent Black man that I know. But one thing for sure, out of all things that you've ever said to me, you are 100% about being a dad and being an example for your kids. I absolutely love the way you are as a dad. I love and respect the way you are as a parent. And even though your job is super demanding, you come home and you rock it out. Reggie, you already know how I feel about you raising baby girl. You already know, because I tell you all the time, your daughter's going to be a super rock star because of the time that you showed her as a father and as a man. You've shown her so much love. She is going to be freaking amazing. And that's the same thing with Angel. By the way, Gaylon's daughter is on Real Talk with the Ladies. And when I tell you she's uniquely beautiful inside and out, and I complimented her because it's not about all of the makeup and all the flair. She's just uniquely beautiful. And it's like having I call her baby McDowell on the show, because it's like having a mini Gaylon. She's very responsible, but I can tell that's Gaylon's child, the way she responds. And so I'm going to say to all of you, thank you for being outstanding Black men first and being amazing dads second, because it takes the outstanding Black man to be the amazing dad. And I'm just going to say, on behalf of little Black girls all over America, if everybody had a dad like one of you, we will all be swans. That's all I have to say. So on that note, folks, make sure you tune in next week, because they're going to be dropping it like they always do, the Black Man Knowledge on Real Talk with the Men. We'll see you next week, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.